Welcome back to another episode of Esports, Metaverse, and beyond. Today's episode diverges from our usual episodes, as instead of talking about esports in the Metaverse, we're going to be discussing the beyond as we interview Rod Carter, news reporter from CBS 17. Rod Carter is a Florida A&M University alum. He's also a life member of the FAMU National Alumni Association, and he coaches and guides upcoming journalists as their mentor. Ron Carter, welcome to the show.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you very much. How are y'all doing?
I'm doing pretty good.
Good. I see you all ready for Christmas. The tree's already up and everything.
Yep, we're excited for it.
Things are pretty festive over here.
I see.
Well, let's play a little game before you dive in. All right, for a bit of fun.
Okay, yep, let's do it.
It's game time. You seem like an advanced storyteller, Rod Carter. What's your favorite movie based on its plot and why?
Ooh, that's a good one. So probably my favorite movie is not one movie. I like a lot of them, but I'm going to go with all the X-Men movies. I love all the X-Men movies except probably one. It's not a big fan of the teenage or the new mutants. I don't know if you guys like X-Men or not, but I love the X-Men movies because I like all the different powers and the things they can do and trying to see, the good versus evil kind of stuff. So I love all the X-Men movies, but I'm also a big black and white movie fan. So I like movies from the 30s and the 40s and some, 50s, 60s. So I like all kinds of movies. Last night I watched Jurassic Park again, like the second one from way back in the day, which was awesome too.
You have a pretty good taste in movies, Mr. Carter.
Thank you.
You're welcome. If you could interview one person throughout any time in history, who would it be and why?
So probably Barack Obama, and that's because I've never had a chance to interview him. I have interviewed a few of the past presidents, but I've never had a chance to interview Barack Obama. And I just would love to sit down and talk with him and just kind of know what it was like to be the first African American president, what that experience was like, some of the, the goods, the bads, the scaries, and part of that, because I know it had to be a terrifying experience to be kind of the first. But I would also like to interview, can I name more than one person?
You can.
So I would love to sit down and talk to several other people in the past, like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I would love to chat with him. I would love to sit down and talk with the writer James Baldwin. That's just kind of a few of the people. I mean, if you want to talk about music, we could talk about all the singers and performers from back in the day. Love to talk to them too. So I guess I don't have just one person. I have a whole list.
What presidents have you interviewed so far, Ron?
I have interviewed Jimmy Carter. I've interviewed actually Donald Trump, but I interviewed Donald Trump before he was president. And I guess those are probably the only two that I have talked to. George Bush, I didn't really interview him one-on-one, but I was in an interview situation with him with a bunch of other different media, as well as, just a number of other politicians as well.
That's pretty cool. Well, thanks for playing, Rod.
Sure thing.
Can you share with us a little bit more about yourself and what you do, Rod?
Sure. So I work, as you see, at CBS 17 News here in Raleigh, and I've been here about a little more than 2.5 years, almost 3 years. But I've been doing television news as an anchor and a news reporter for about 33 years. So I go out as a reporter and interview people and tell stories and talk to them. And, I talk to, like I just mentioned, some of the newsmakers that we talk to. But a lot of people that I talk to, the majority of the people really are just everyday folks who live, in the area. And I worked for about 20 plus years in Tampa. So I got a chance to interview a lot of people there. You want to hear something pretty cool? You guys like sports?
Yeah.
You know what I did literally the day that I came back from an interview at this station in 2021? I interviewed Tom Brady.
Really?
Yes, and it was a complete accident. So you remember the Tampa Bay Buccaneers won the Super Bowl in 21. And so the day that I came back from my interview was the day that they had the parade, like the Super Bowl parade, but it was a boat parade. So I knew I was going to be covering it. I was on the boat with the mayor. So what they did is instead of marching down the street, everybody got in boats and they went down the Hillsborough River, which is only about, I think they only went about 3 or 4 miles, but it was still like 3 or 4 hours long because there were so many people out there, right? So I'm on the boat with Tampa's mayor. Her name is Jane Castor, and it was just the mayor and some other her family, and then not even a lot, just maybe one person, my photographer, me, and like the police, because to watch over her. But she started out the parade, the boat parade. She was like the first one to kick it off. So before everything kicked off, she said, "Oh, well, we're gonna like kind of sail on over there to Tom Brady's boat and talk to him really quick and congratulate him." And I was thinking, are you kidding me? I'm about to like meet Tom Brady. So when the boat gets close, I'm live on TV. We're carrying this live the whole time. I'm live on TV talking about the whole thing and going through what was happening. And so she really, the only thing that was supposed to happen is she was supposed to talk to him and say congratulations, which she did. But I was standing there with a mic, like, back and forth while they were talking. And I was like, it's now or never, man. So I just jumped in there, started asking him a couple of questions. And he was nice. He answered the questions, but I didn't realize it at the time. But because of COVID, that was the first time he had actually had an in-person interview with anybody in like probably a year or two. Everything else had been done on Zoom. So it was pretty neat. I was like the hero for the day. Everybody's like, you're the man. I'm like, well, it was just kind of happenstance because I was right there. But so yeah, I do that. And now here at the station, I report, but not as often. I don't go out as much, but I anchor the news at 4, which is an hour-long newscast. I do the one at 6, which is 30 minutes, and I do a 30-minute newscast at 7 and a 30-minute newscast at 11. So, but it's fun. It's a fun job.
It's amazing that you get to interview so many amazing figures and people.
Yeah, I do. And you know what? The people that I love the most, though, really are not those famous people. I mean, that's fun to talk about, but it's just meeting folks like everyday people, like cool people like you two. By the way, I saw your story on TV. Y'all did an awesome job. That was my friend who interviewed you guys.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, we've known each other for a long time, Miss Siobhan. So yeah, so it's talking to guys like you really is the thing that I love the most. I like meeting people.
How did you get started on your career as a reporter?
So the truth is, I used to get in trouble for talking a lot, and that's the truth. I did in school. We used to get report cards and it always had a comment on the back, and it said, "Talks excessively, does not use class time wisely." I know it like from second, third, fourth grade all the way up. So eventually, I started thinking, and I'm super nosy, so I had to figure out a career that would marry being nosy with being talkative. And I thought, well, I might as well be a journalist, either that or an attorney. So I started kind of looking at journalism more seriously around high school. And yeah, I really enjoyed starting the process. I mean, I still love what I do. It's been, like I said, years and years and years, and I still absolutely love it. And that's why I always tell people, if you love what you do, it's not like work, you'll enjoy it every day. It's not hard because, I mean, there's stuff about work that drives you crazy, but that's going to happen at any job you have. So, but I've been doing it now for full time for 33 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
What's your favorite part about being a journalist?
Being able to tell people stories and talk to people. I mean, I just, you guys have heard of the March on Washington, right? Do you remember that? Have you learned about that in school at all? So back in 1968, there was a huge March on Washington, and there were, I think maybe like 250,000 people who marched on Washington for jobs and fairness. And Martin Luther King Jr. was a speaker for that event. Well, 50 years later, there was a big celebration, and they kind of had everybody going back to DC to kind of recreate the march and remember it 50 years later. And I had the chance to get on a bus with a lot of there were a couple of buses from Tampa with people with the NAACP to travel to that the recreation of that march and the anniversary. And so that kind of stuff really means a lot to me. Just being able to tell stories. And I often say I like to enlighten, educate, and entertain. And that's really kind of what I like to do. I think people need to be entertained in news because it's news. It needs to keep your attention. But I like talking about stories and telling stories that people may not have heard. I love doing stories about history. One of my favorite stories, I did a story about the naming of Tampa. And Tampa is Tampa, right? But originally it was Tanpa, Tampa, and it eventually changed because people couldn't, like, one, it was hard to say, but it was a total. So that kind of stuff, I like digging up history and telling those kinds of stories.
What's your favorite point in history?
My favorite, I don't know, that's hard. So I'm a big Harlem Renaissance fan. So if you don't know what that is, you got to look it up. But it was like this era in the 20s where there was a lot of creativity in Harlem, and there was writing and music and art and all that stuff among African Americans. So I love that part of history. I love the modern civil rights movement of the 60s and the 50s. I mean, love it in the sense that I just like the change that was made. So that's probably it. And then, living through some history and things that we see now, it's being able to document that stuff is great.
Mm. What are some challenges of being a journalist?
Whew, there's a lot. Um, Not everybody likes to see journalists coming. So people will yell at you, people will scream at you. They have tried to, attack you or fight you, or, not everybody appreciates what we do. So it is challenging. And these days it's harder because, we do a lot more with less. So we have, I just named what, 4 shows that I do, 4 newscasts. When I first started, there were two, 6 and 11. And then they added a 5. Then they added a 5:30. Then they added a 4. Now they added a 7. And they added an 8. I mean, so it's just a lot more, like, to do with fewer people. So that's kind of hard. But really, for me personally, some of the hardest things are really doing stories that are emotional and that involve children or old people. Like those two things, they really tear at my heart. And I hate having to tell stories where children or senior citizens are hurt. That I don't like at all. But it's kind of a part of what we have to do. So we have to.
Yeah, that's sad that news is always reporting on such sad topics all the time. A lot of time
Yeah.
when I see the news on TV, it's always discussing that. But you're on the back end. How often do they report on like other stories too?
And that's the thing, we do some good stories too, but it's hard because what sticks in your head is when you see the bad stuff. But we really do some really good stories. Like, we started this segment here that I love in our 7 o'clock newscast. It's called Positively Carolina, and it really is just like 3 or 4 stories about good stuff. And it's funny because half the time we get it from like Facebook and X or Instagram posts where people are like, oh, so and so won an award for such and such, like a congratulations to them. It's just stuff that makes you smile, and I love those stories. That's why I say I like to do stories that educate, entertain, and enlighten, because they don't always involve a crime. I mean, really, sometimes it's just, like, this is gonna sound funny. Don't laugh at me, okay? You promise?
Yeah,
I'm doing a whole story about a graveyard.
Really?
really?
Right, because it's in the middle of a median it's like in the middle of a little patch of grass next to a convenience store. And it's a small, like, cemetery. There's only like 11 plots in there. And it's like more than, like, almost 250 years old. That kind of stuff is interesting to me. Like, how did that get there? They built all this stuff around it and it's still there. So what's the story behind it? So I'm looking into that. I did a story about that should air here in the next few weeks. But that kind of stuff I love doing. I think people will remember that. I hate the crime stories, but it's like you have to tell them because it happens. But we try to limit how much of that we show.
All the other things they say on the news is interesting. A lot of stuff that a lot of people don't know. You learn something new every day, especially if you're a
Mm-hmm.
journalist.
Absolutely. That's what I love too. I have learned so much that I would never, I've been blessed to see so much that I may not have ever seen, growing up where I grew up. I've been able to go places and do things, covered a couple of Super Bowls, covered like the Stanley Cup playoffs a couple times. That kind of stuff is just, that's the fun part of the job, just to get out there and see and do stuff that I could never have afforded to go to a Super Bowl. Those tickets are ridiculous. And not to mention flying, you know what I mean? But I got a chance to go to two. That is what I love. That's the
The
fun part.
cool things.
Yeah.
We hear you mentor aspiring journalists. How do
Mm-hmm.
you do it? What's your strategy?
So it's funny because everybody laughs at me and they go, "Oh, that's my mentee," and they're like, "How many mentees do you have?" And I'm like, "There's a lot." But what I do, I there's a class I usually teach every year at FAMU where I went to school. We haven't had it in a couple of years just because of budgeting issues and COVID. But there's a class that I teach. It's a weekend journalism course. So all these kids from different schools will apply and they come down and we teach them everything under the sun. And it's funny because usually when they leave, a few of them still keep numbers, which we encourage them to do and keep in contact. And so I end up, like mentoring people throughout their career. In fact, we have a guy who's coming to work here and he starts, I think, in January. And people are like, "You know him?" I'm like, "Yeah, I kind of mentored him." He's probably 35, 36 years old, but I've known him just that long. So, it's rewarding to me. Like I want to see people that I've tried to encourage do better than me or get a job. I mean, I love to see them progress. So what I do is just talk to them, help them navigate through stuff. Having worked on jobs for so long, people, they ask you questions like, "Oh my gosh, this happened. What do I do?" And then I help them with writing their scripts or writing their stories or, coming up with story ideas or whatever the case may be. Really, however I can help them.
Good. How long have you been doing this mentoring?
Ooh, gosh, probably since I started. I mean,
Oh,
honestly, and it's funny. The reason I do it is because someone helped me. There were two guys that were instrumental. One of them has passed away, and the other one is still a photographer. But they really looked out for me, like when I first started in news, and they were like, "What do you need? Listen, we're gonna train you, take care of you. You got any questions?" So I thought it was my duty for they gave to me as my duty to pass that forward and give that to somebody else. So I laugh all the time because I'm looking at folks with grown. I ran into a guy at homecoming, and he was like, "Man, I'm so glad to see you. I thank you for everything you've done to help me out of my career." And he's like, "Oh, my daughter's graduating from here," and I was like, "Wait, how old am I exactly?" Because now this man has kids who were graduating from college, and I knew him when he was in college. It was hilarious, but I mean that's what we're supposed to do. I think we're put on this earth to help people, so that's what I like to do.
and you're doing a lot of good mentoring people to help share information.
I'm trying. I'm trying.
We hear you've been awarded a lot of awards over your career. Are there any that stand out in particular?
Um, no, you know what? I've gotten some from. I'm a part of this organization called the National Association of Black Journalists, and I've gotten awards for stories I've done with them, and those mean a lot. I also got an award from the University of South Florida, like I can't remember. It's a Cal Kappa Tau Alpha like service award. It was an award for like achievements in journalism. I've been nominated for 4 Emmys, but I haven't won one yet. So hopefully one day I'll win an Emmy so I can retire. But I'm grateful for all of them. All of the awards I've gotten from the Associated Press down to just thank yous from people when I speak. All of those good things mean. I spoke at a program once in a school, and this man gave me the key to the city, which I thought was hilarious. Um, and it's this big placard thing with a key in it, and it was just funny. But I was like, "This is nice, but I don't think this key actually opens anything up." But I'll take it.
I've never thought about a news reporter getting letters from fans, but considering how often they appear on TV, and especially you who's been doing this for years, how often do you get like letters from people who watch you?
Well, I don't get as many as I used to get, and I think that's primarily because I'm sort of still new here. But I used to get them a lot, and sometimes they were nice. A lot of times they were not. I mean, viewers, they will email you things and they don't think you see it. And so they are not always the nicest people in the world. But it was okay though. I got one the other day about some guy who said I said something wrong. And so I responded to him like, "Oh, yep, that was me. It was my bad." And he's like, "Oh wow, I didn't think you were gonna see this." I'm like, "Well, who did you think you were?" I mean, he emailed it to the general station, but I'm like, "Yeah, I work here." Um, and he was like, "Well, that was very cool of you to respond." And I'm sorry I sounded so snarky. And I was like, "It's okay." But I've also been blessed with people who email me. I'll give you an example. I got an email from this older lady once who was like, "Oh, I just love watching you because I used to work in mornings. I love watching you in the morning." And then she would just email me all the time just to say hello or check on me. And we literally kept in touch for years and years and years until she passed away. So I've met some wonderful people through email, and then some other folks I would never email them back because they're not always the nicest people on earth. So
That's nice. It's good to
yeah,
stay strong, even with all the negative comments some people may get.
yeah, you have to get. I don't take it personally. I used to. I'll be honest. When I first started out, I've always been a sensitive person. My mother laughs now. She's like, "I don't know when you got this thick skin." Because when I was a kid, you could say anything to me, and I would be like, "What?" I was like always sensitive, but now I've gotten better with it, and I realize that I just don't take it personally. So,
Mhm. Are there any behind the scenes facts that you can share about the news reporting
oh,
industry?
thought you'd never ask. How about we share some behind the scenes video? Want to go on a tour?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm gonna flip the camera around as soon as I figure out how to do that. I think. Oh wait. Boom. All right. So this little room, actually, that we're in now, is just
Mm-hmm.
kind of it's really a digital mini studio. It's not anything that we use all the time, but it's just a little digital mini studio for like the people online, the web folks to use. And so they have a little bit of a board in here and a computer, and like they can stand in front of these screens.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually a TV when it comes on. And
Oh,
then I'm going to turn off the lights because there's a sign that says, please turn off the lights.
okay.
And then this is another little newsroom setup camera that they have too. So sometimes during the newscast, you'll see reporters who report live in the studio. This is the area where they stand. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
This looks slightly crooked, but okay. So it's just a TV monitor, and the reporter will stand like right here, and that's the camera. So they'll get a chance to talk. And I don't know why this ring light's here. I guess it helps, but and then that's the computer they used to kind of put in all of the inputs for this monitor. All right,
Oh,
okay, and this is our newsroom. Um, so we have a photographer who's sitting there now. Wave, hey kids.
eh,
This is
Hi.
they said hi. A photographer who the photographers kind of camp out in this area, and then reporters sit over here. Now it's really quiet because most people are gone. That is our assistant news director, Chris. He
Hi.
waved. They said hi. Harrison is our one of our reporters at night. These are these are edit bays. So we have an editor here who's going through and editing some of the show,
Mm.
some of the newscasts. This is another one of those edit bays as well. They love little toys. It cracks me up. This little area up here is called our assignment desk or the digital desk. Now nobody's here because I think the person who was here just went to lunch. But so usually there are people who are sitting here. He comes right now. There he is. They sit here and they write for our website. And also, can you hear those scanners by any chance? There's
Mm.
like scanners. There's scanners that come through, and you can hear when stuff is happening. And then
Oh.
yeah. So these are all the areas where they dial up live shots. So if you ever see people live on TV,
Mm.
they have to like call them up and all that good stuff. And that's like one of our traffic cameras. It's all the technical stuff that goes into it. But that's the other side of the newsroom is over here. I sit way back over in the corner over there. And
Mm-hmm.
that's our sports anchor who you're seeing right there.
Yeah.
And then this gentleman is our producer. Say hey, Garrett. Hello.
Hi,
Hi.
Garrett.
I,
They said hi, Garrett. Garrett is producing our 11 o'clock newscast now. And
oh,
he also did the 7 o'clock. As you could tell by the big number 7-11 that they put up over there. Can't miss it. Exactly. This is Leslie, our executive producer, our evening executive
Hi.
producer. They said hi. I'll just show you who you're talking to.
hi. Oh, hi, guys.
They're so cool. I let
Hi.
her watch her video
It's
earlier
nice to
today.
see you.
They said it was nice to see you. So she kind of oversees the whole product tonight. This is my little desk where I sit, and that was my dinner. So let's go to the studio, shall we?
There's a lot of people behind the scenes at the news. Most of
Yeah,
the
and
time, you don't get to see this.
you never get to see half of the folks, and it's funny because these are all this is the lowest part of the staff because there's way more people during the day. And
Cool.
so we're walking. You want to see something hilarious? This is a tape
Sure.
full of a cart full of tapes, right? These tapes
Mm-hmm.
have been here since I got here. We haven't used a tape in years. I
Really?
don't even. They're all dusty.
What did you
All right,
guys use
so
tapes for?
they used to use tapes before everything went digital,
Oh,
um, but now they don't. So it's kind of dark in here. So I'm just going to turn on the over. You mind if I turn on the overhead lights for a second?
I'm fine with that.
oh,
Hang on 1 second for me, guys. Which one? All lights. It says
What
all
did you?
lights off. I'm trying to figure out how to turn on the lights. I have no idea what I'm doing. This is Wes. Wes is our chief meteorologist
Hi.
and lighting expert, and this is our lighting bank. And he's
That's
what I just did.
I did it. Studio A light.
Studio A light. Let there be light. Thank you. You're so funny. So this is our studio, the one we do most of the news at. There are a bunch of different spots where we sit, but mostly we sit right here at this desk. We also have one show where we sit kind of in front. We put two chairs out here. Um, the cool thing is, so all of these cameras, right? They're
Mhm.
digital. They're robotic cameras. So somebody controls them. Nobody ever has to touch them. They control them with a switch, and they just move all over the room. And there's three
wow.
of them here, and then a couple of them on the other side. And then there's a spot where reporters stand here or here. And then, of course, that's just the backdrop. But this is where we sit and read the news. So those cameras will be coming up closer, and then we will read the teleprompter. And
Ooh.
yeah, this one is funny because sometimes it flips the letters in reverse. You have to like reset it. So
Really?
just imagine all of this continues to scroll like the words as we're trying to read that all. And this is Wes, as I mentioned before. He's our chief meteorologist. And Wes, this is his little domain back here.
Hi again, Wes.
Where are they?
These two great young men have a podcast. I'm going to send it to you later because they're awesome. They're going to take our jobs.
Hi.
Like, really? Yeah.
Nice.
It'll be a couple years.
Where are they right now?
You guys are in Raleigh, correct? The city of Raleigh?
We're in Cary, North Carolina.
Cary, that's right.
So show them the billboard over there.
All right. So he's going to show you exactly what the weather looks like in your area, which is probably going to be nothing because it's kind of dry right now, right? So he's changing the maps, zooming in right there on Cary.
Wow. A first-hand view.
I know, right? You get your own personal
Yeah.
weather forecast.
Oh, I
sorry.
recognize like
We're
some of
there.
these backdrops. Oh,
Oh, right in that
And-
circle.
Yep. And that's where you guys are.
Cool.
yeah.
Kind of
There
neat,
are less
right?
green screens than I imagined.
So this one is not the green screen. I'm going to go around and he just decided to draw that for you. Wes is he's a character. So thank you, Wes. Appreciate it. Now this is really behind the scenes. So behind this set, you go into the next studio. And that's where the green screen is.
Okay.
So he'll stand there when sometimes they put him on that big board, but mostly he stands here when he's standing on the weather. And then this is just another set that we have for like a little daytime show that they do where they interview people.
Oh, okay.
I have one last spot to show you.
Yeah.
Maybe if I get out of here. This is a cool spot. So now we're going to go into the control room where they actually do everything. So this is audio room.
All
And it's
right.
funny. This is their new audio board. You probably saw that big board sitting out in the hallway when I came in.
Yeah.
That's the old one. That thing is like 15 years old. They put this in about 2 weeks ago. So this is the new audio board. And as you can see, it's all like digital. I mean, they have the sliders, but everything they do is here and it's all controlled digitally. And I'm not touching any of it because I will mess it up. And then this is the actual control room where the director sits. So everything now is computerized. So they go in and they program everything. This is a rundown for the show, right? They'll program everything. So they program like the audio, the camera shots, all that stuff, and basically work their way through the show. But it used to be now, like, I don't know what half of this stuff does, but it's all computers. and these are all the monitors they have to keep an eye on. So it's
There's
like
a lot.
it's funny because it's really 1, 2, 3 big TV screens. Like that's one screen, that's
Mm-hmm.
two, and that's three. And then they have like the smaller ones up top. But then in the big screens are like all the smaller little things that are split up. So they have to look at the things that say TVU. I don't know if you can see it very well. Those
I
four
can.
with the yeah, the four with the plaid look like boxes right there. That's where all the live shots from the field come in. So all the reporters will be in there, and they have to program everything. And this is the other board that they use. I don't know. I think they still use it, but back in the day, you would have to punch like camera one and then slide the thing to take it. It's just all completely different now.
Wow.
And
So do they
yeah,
change the screens like in the background when everyone's
oh,
recording?
oh yeah, everything changes all the time. This is, by the way, where the producer will sit. So the director will be up front, and the producer will sit right here. And they talk to us, and then talk to everybody in the field. But yeah, they have to program everything and change it all as it goes on. And if anything happens in the middle of the newscast, like they have to change it on the fly, which sometimes is great. Sometimes it doesn't work so well. But there you go.
Thanks for the
There's a,
tour,
there's
Rod.
a there's a tour of our little station. It's fun. It's crazy. It's nuts. It's great. And I'm just gonna go sit back on the set and annoy West for a little while. But there
Thank
you
you.
go.
That was
If
very
you guys,
insightful.
yeah, if you guys ever want to come up for a visit, let me know. You can come see it in person.
All
Uh,
right.
Will
Yep.
you need us to wrap this up soon?
Okay. Yep. I
No,
talked too much.
no,
I'm sorry.
no, not us. We're good.
Oh
But
yeah.
you.
Whatever you need. I'm good. I'm good.
Okay. Okay then. Well, thank you. That was amazing. We got to see a lot behind the scenes.
Oh, absolutely. You're welcome. I'm glad I could show it to you. Technology can do that these days.
Yeah, it can.
It's nice to see all the people who are working behind the scenes to make everything possible.
Oh yeah. They make those of us in front of the camera look good.
What are some misconceptions that people have about being a journalist?
They think we don't care. That we, ask a bunch of questions and have no heart. And that's just not true. I mean, journalists are some of the most caring people that you've probably ever met in your life. I mean, now there are exceptions to every rule, but we actually really do care a lot about what we do. And if we didn't, we wouldn't be doing it. But that's probably the worst one. I think that people think we just are just telling these stories that could care less, or don't have any feelings about it. And that's just not true.
Some news anchors have a serious tone, while others laugh and smile more. Which delivery do you prefer?
I'm in the middle. It depends on what the story is about. You probably could tell I'm a little bit more chipper. I'm more
Mhm.
of a I think a conversational anchor than I am, the hey, good evening kind of guy. But it really just it depends on the story, um, and how I react to it. Some stories you can't smile about, and some stories you can only smile about. So it kind of just depends on what it is. But for the most time, I mean, I try to stay light and keep it conversational. I always say that I'm talking to people at home, and people at home aren't reading like a news anchor. So why should I talk to them that way?
Positivity can go a long way.
It really can. It really can.
So, considering the fast-paced nature of news, how do you keep up with the news while also delivering an accurate report? Sorry.
Yeah, that's a good question. Actually, it's a group effort. I'll put it that way. That's why we have producers and executive producers and reporters and photographers, assignment editors. Kind of everybody plays a part in making sure that the information that we get across on television is actually accurate. And we all make mistakes. My great uncle used to say that's why they put erasers on pencils, because we all make mistakes, and you just have to own up to those mistakes and just try not to make them again. But for the most part, we have such a good group of folks who keep a good eye out to make sure that the information, as best as we know it at the time, is correct. And so we're not giving people false information. And that's especially true when it comes to things like weather. And that's one of the things I love about Wes in the job that he does is because he really does care about the people that are watching. So when we have severe weather, he wants that information to be as up to date and as accurate as possible when he delivers it because people really quite literally their lives can depend on that. Having worked in an area where there are hurricanes a lot in Florida, that is one of the things that we have to always be mindful of. And that goes back to your other question too about whether you're serious or joking. I think during severe weather, there's a way you can strike a tone that is serious but not scary.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want people sitting at home like, Jesus, if that guy's scared, then I should be scared too. So you have to strike a balance to make sure that you're delivering it and people understand that it's important, but like they don't think you're about to get up and run out of the building too.
How far in advance do you guys like get these news stories too?
It depends. Some days, I mean, some stories we, know about in advance, we plan out. A lot of times you hear it on a scanner and it just happened and you have to run on it. So it just kind of depends on what the story is.
Technology has improved a lot over the past couple of years and has really changed the way that people do things in society. Do you think
Mm-hmm.
that this newly found technology has made journalism easier?
I think it's made it easier in some ways, and I think it's made it harder in some ways. I think it makes it easier because we can get information a lot faster. There used to be a time when you'd have to go get a camera, go somewhere, shoot it all, bring it back, put it in the system and edit it, the tape to tape and all this other stuff. Now, half the time you can get video because somebody's there with a cell phone, and they got the video. So I think the technology in that sense makes it a little bit easier to get some of the images. But it also makes it hard too because sometimes you don't know if those images are actually accurate. I mean, with the advent of artificial intelligence, people can create anything to say anything and look any kind of way. So it's kind of hard sometimes when you don't want to, you want to be careful about what you're putting on TV and you have to double check everything. For example, I'll give you a quick example. We had this story last year and we had it this year. This company in Raleigh, and I say company, offered people the opportunity to release 100 roaches in their house for them to study how those roaches live for $2,500, right? And
Mm-hmm.
after 30 days, they give them 20. Well, they did it. A lot of people did it last year. I don't know if you guys even saw the story, but people ran it last year. This year, they did the same thing. When we started looking into it, and we're not even sure the company actually exists. Like, I don't think anything about it is true. Our reporter called like the Better Business Bureau and all these agencies, and they dug and dug and dug, and they cannot find this company listed anywhere. We drove to the address where this is located, and there's nothing there. We took the picture of the person who says they were the CEO, and you can reverse Google search an image, and it was a
Yeah.
stock photo. So in that instance, technology helps because you can, get rid of these stories that may not necessarily be true without ever leaving your desk. You know, um,
Yeah.
but on the other hand, that story also got out there very quickly because of technology. People could pop that out there. They create a website and make it look real, and it's not. It's
Well, that's
interesting
not
stuff.
good.
Yeah, it's weird.
On the topic of technology and AI, many professionals have shared their concern about AI taking their jobs. Do you think that
Right.
journalism will be taken over by AI? And if so, when?
So it's interesting. I hope the answer is no because I really need to work. But I sat in on a panel discussion about this over the summer, and it was a big concern because it's sort of like people are like, "Oh, AI, it's great. It'll help. It'll help write stories. It'll help get information." On the flip side, is if it can write the story for you, why do you need me? So I don't know that it will ever fully take over, but I think it does have the ability to change what we do if we don't approach it the right way from the beginning. But it's interesting. I think a lot of people in journalism are nervous that it could change, what we do. I don't think that anybody's ever going to look at news and try to figure out if I'm actually a real person or not. I don't think it'll ever replace the news anchors. It might change the way we look for information. I don't know. I hope it does. I hope we still do our job and people can believe and trust in what we do.
Yeah, I think people will be less trusting in an AI telling them the news over a human.
Right. I think so too. Like it would just be weird to me. I mean, but you see it on like, social media sites when people create these what I would look like if I were 50 pictures, all that's, AI doing that. I have a concern about doing that, so I don't do it, but I can tell you it's something that journalism people, in general are looking at because they're concerned about that too.
How much AI has already been integrated into the process of news making?
What we're doing, not a lot aside from, stuff like, I mean, technically, I guess you could call a Google search an AI because it's looking for information. I mean, but technically, not anything that I can put my finger on that we do. We don't usually use it for any of that stuff. We don't create images with it. We don't create video with it. We don't create scripts with it. So that's good. When they
Good.
start doing that, then I'll be really worried.
Yeah. Digital literacy is very important too, or people online finding out whether news is real or if it's fake. What advice would you give to people to decipher whether this news is real or fake?
That's a good question. I mean, that's a great question actually. People see stuff on Instagram or Twitter or TikTok and they immediately think it's real. Always do a search because there's usually a legitimate news organization that would have done the story. I'm always leery about everything that I see that becomes a social media like firestorm because I'm like, well, let me just check this against some other sources that are more reputable. I always check it against like, major historic news organizations that may have done a story on it because sometimes, I mean, people see stuff and they get all crazy about it. And it's like, that didn't happen. And you guys have seen this where you see, oh, so and so actor's dead. And it's like, no, they're not. Just they're only on the internet, but they do it all the time. So I always say check and recheck what you see and just make sure that it is what it is.
It's good to make sure that all this information is real because even if very few people see this, it could spread like a wildfire. And suddenly one person hears about something and they tell it to someone else as if it's
Mm-hmm.
true, and then it just continues going on.
And it takes 2 seconds with a phone or an iPad, and it
Mhm.
just sends. And that's how these things get out of control.
Yeah.
Do you believe that younger generations are better at spotting fake information because they're exposed to the internet, opposed to their older counterparts who aren't on the internet as much?
I think some are. I think some are a little bit more, adept at seeing it and knowing it's not real. I always use my mother as a good example. She's 79 and she sees stuff and she thinks it's off, but she's not sure. And I'm always like, Mom, it's not real. And she's like, oh, I didn't think so, but I wasn't sure. Because she doesn't use the internet. She doesn't use, social media as much. So I think to that extent, younger people are a little bit, more clued into it. However, I also think younger people are the ones who spread it a lot faster than older people. So it's kind of a catch-22. It's like, I mean, yeah, they know it. They obviously know that, and some of them know it ain't real when they spread it. So it's really,
That's
I mean, I just think everybody, young and old and in between, we really have to be vigilant on what we see and what we believe.
that's a fair point. I think future generations will probably get even better at that as
Mm,
hopefully their parents will be able to educate them on this as they
yeah,
didn't have that many years ago.
that's right. I mean, I remember when the internet started, I was working as a journalist, and I remember when it became widely popular. I should say. I mean, not when it actually started because it's a lot older than that. But we, as journalists, immediately went to putting stuff online. Right? We're like, oh, we got to get the news on the web. We got to get the news on the web. And then after a while, it's like, why would anybody want to watch the news if they could just get it on the web? So then we had to stop and try to figure out how to make money off of it on the web. And it's like, well, you're kind of closing the gate after the cows gotten out. But it's just interesting. It's been interesting to watch those changes over time.
So, what advice do you have for aspiring broadcasters and journalists so they can be successful in their field?
Be nosy, or I should say, be inquisitive. Sorry, be nosy. Ask questions. Learn it. Volunteer where you can. Get out there and do what you can do. I There's still a great need for journalists and what we do, for storytellers and truth seekers. So if it's something you want to do, and my biggest advice really is do it for the right reasons. Don't do it just to be on TV. I mean, that's fine, but if you want to really make a difference, you got to really want to be able to tell stories, not just be on TV. Because that's kind of what we face now is a lot of people, younger people just want to be on TV. Like you guys are doing a great job of what you do, and you just happen to do it on television. But what you're doing is getting information and putting that out for people to see it and learn a lot about different things. And and beyond, which I love, by the way. So I think people who want to tell stories and get information, I think that's where you start.
Phenomenal advice.
Yes, thank you, Ron.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
It was phenomenal today. But we really enjoyed today's interview, and you're doing a great job over at CBS 17. Before we go, how can people find you on CBS again?
Yep, I hear 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. I'm sorry, 4 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, and 11 o'clock, Monday through Friday on CBS 17, or Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all those things.
All right, thank you. We'll catch you on TV later tonight.
Awesome.
Thank you, the audience, for joining us in today's episode of Esports, Metaverse, and Beyond.
Bye.
Take care, guys. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.